At some point, you notice something simple. The day is already moving. Not because you organized it. Not because you planned it well. Not because you stayed aware. It's moving because days move. You wake up and the morning is already there. You open your eyes and the room hasn't been waiting. Time didn't pause while you slept. The day is underway before you decide anything about it. For a long time, it may have felt like the day needed you to hold it together. Like if you didn't stay attentive, everything would slip. Like if you didn't manage yourself, the day would unravel. Like awareness was the thing keeping life functional. But slowly, something else becomes clear. The day carries itself. You don't have to assemble it. You step into motion that's already happening. The light is already changing. People are already moving through their routines. Messages are already arriving. Needs are already present. You're not starting the day. You're joining it. That shift changes how effort feels. You're no longer pushing the day forward. You're no longer dragging yourself through it. You're no longer bracing against it. You're moving with it, not in a poetic sense, in a practical one. You do what's in front of you, then the next thing, then the next, and nothing requires commentary. This doesn't mean you're passive. You still make choices. You still take responsibility. You still respond. But the effort is different. It's no longer effort spent managing yourself inside the day. It's effort spent responding to the day. That distinction matters. Managing yourself is heavy. It requires constant attention, constant correction, constant positioning. Responding doesn't. Responding happens naturally when you're not split. You notice what needs doing. You do it. Then something else shows up. You don't have to keep checking whether you're doing it right. The day keeps moving. This is where time feels different. Not faster. Not slower. Less dense. There's less resistance packed into each moment. You're not pausing the flow to interpret it. So things pass through more cleanly. A task begins. A task ends. A conversation starts. A conversation finishes. No residue. No mental replay. No second-guessing loop. And because there's less residue, the day doesn't feel as long. Not because it's busy, because it's not being dragged. You might still get tired. That doesn't go away. But the tiredness feels physical, not existential. It's not, I'm exhausted by life. It's, my body needs rest. And that's easier to respond to. You rest. Then the day continues. This is where people sometimes say they feel less motivated. Because motivation used to be the thing that pushed the day forward. Goals, plans, intentions. But when the day carries itself, motivation becomes unnecessary. You don't need a reason to do the next thing. The next thing is already there. You don't need inspiration to respond to what's in front of you. You just respond. That doesn't mean you don't care. It means care isn't dependent on momentum. You show up because you're here, not because you're chasing something. That's why this phase feels quieter, less driven, but also less exhausting. You're no longer trying to generate energy. You're using what's already available. And that energy is steadier, less explosive, more reliable. The day doesn't need to be optimized to be lived. It doesn't need to be meaningful. It doesn't need to be productive in a visible way. It just needs to unfold. And it already is. This can feel unsettling if you were used to structuring the day around improvement, around progress, around becoming someone. Because when that drops, the day looks plain. But plain isn't empty. Plain is workable. You make coffee. You answer messages. You do a task. You rest. You eat. You speak to someone. You move on. Nothing about this feels special. And that's the point. When life stops needing to be special, it becomes livable. You're no longer holding the day up with expectation. You're letting it carry you. That doesn't mean you stop planning altogether. Plans still exist. Schedules still matter. But they don't sit at the center. They're tools, not identities. If a plan changes, the day doesn't collapse. You adjust. And adjusting doesn't feel like failure. It feels like life responding to itself. You may notice you stop asking certain questions. What should I be doing right now? Am I using my time well? Is this the right use of my energy? Those questions lose urgency, not because they're answered, because they're unnecessary. The day already knows where it's going. You're just part of that movement. This doesn't mean you never pause. Pausing still happens. But pausing isn't a strategy. It's a response. You pause because something needs attention. Then you move again. No self-evaluation required. You're no longer trying to get the day right. You're letting it be what it is. And that releases a lot of pressure. Pressure you may not have known you were carrying. The pressure to make the day count. The pressure to justify your time. The pressure to feel aligned. When that pressure lifts, you notice something. The day doesn't become chaotic. It becomes simpler. Structure emerges naturally. Things get done because they need doing, not because you forced yourself. That's a different kind of order, an organic one, the kind that doesn't need supervision. You might also notice you stop narrating transitions. You don't think, now I'm moving into work mode. You don't think, now I'm resting. You don't think, now I'm being present. You just move. Transitions happen without being labeled. And because of that, there's less friction between moments. You don't have to gear up. You don't have to wind down. You don't have to mark boundaries mentally. Life flows, not perfectly, but smoothly enough. This is what it feels like when the day carries itself. You're not steering every moment. You're riding something that's already in motion. That doesn't make you powerless. It makes you available. Available to respond rather than control. And control was heavy. Control required vigilance. Control required effort. Availability just requires presence. And presence doesn't require effort. It happens when you're not elsewhere. You may notice you're less impatient. Not because you're calmer, because you're not pushing against time. When the day carries itself, you don't feel behind. You're not racing to catch up. You're already where you are. Waiting becomes part of the flow instead of an interruption. Traffic is traffic. A delay is a delay. It doesn't mean something went wrong. It's just the day doing what days do. This doesn't eliminate frustration. Frustration still arises, but it doesn't spiral. It doesn't turn into a story about how your day is going. It comes, it goes. The day continues. That's integration showing up as practicality. Not insight, not understanding, just functionality. You're not constantly resetting. You're continuing. That's what makes this phase hard to describe. There's no highlight, nothing to point to, nothing to teach, just a noticeable lack of struggle, a noticeable absence of internal resistance. And that absence creates space. Space to notice what's actually happening. The texture of the day, the rhythm of tasks, the feeling of your body moving through time, not as an object of awareness, as lived experience. You don't need to remind yourself to be here. You already are. The day makes sure of it. This episode isn't about productivity. It's not about mindfulness. It's not about surrender. It's about noticing that life has its own momentum, and you don't need to supply it. You don't have to push the river. You're already in it. And when you stop trying to steer every current, the movement becomes easier to trust. Not because it's perfect, because it's consistent. The day carries itself whether you're aware or not. That's always been true. What's new is that you're no longer trying to replace that movement with management. You're letting the day be a day, and letting yourself be part of it. No commentary, no correction, no extra weight, just movement, from one moment to the next. And when the day ends, it ends. You don't need to review it. You don't need to extract meaning. You don't need to decide whether it was good or bad. It happened. That's enough. Tomorrow will arrive on its own. You don't have to prepare the ground. The day will carry itself again, and you'll move with it, just as you are.